Alright, so in yesterday's video, we were discussing some of the top decks post Infinite Forbidden and what the meta is going to be looking like and sorting everything into a tier list. But what they mostly have in common is the fact that they're going to be playing the Fiendsmith engine. So for today's video, I decided to talk about some meta-relevant, good budget decks that you're able to play post Infinite Forbidden that do not need extremely expensive secret rares and Snake Eyes and other engines, but you can still do well with them. So hope you enjoy. We're going to be discussing top 5 decks, but please chime in with your thoughts because I'm sure there are a plethora of good budget decks out there that you can try and make them work. So let's start with Sprite. This is a deck that's not really been popular in the last couple of formats because the Runic version just wasn't really the way to go. You didn't have the greatest time going first, and overall Sprite took quite a lot of hits. It was Ronin Toadin, Sprite Elf, and a lot of different versions came out over the years because of those hits, and people were trying to make it work, but it just wasn't really there in terms of power these last couple of months. However, with Terminal Revenge and the new Ice Barrier support, I genuinely believe this deck has quite a lot of potential, and we saw it win one of the WCQs. I think it was South America, which is an extremely good accomplishment. So what's up with these Ice Barrier cards? So both of them are inexpensive. We have Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier at about $3, as well as Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier at 16 cents, which is nothing pretty much. And the Mirror Mage is what is able to get you to Toad, which this is like a distant memory for the Sprite deck at this point because we have no Ronin Toadin anymore, and Swap Frog with like one of the extra deck monsters, like it was just a little combo that people were trying to make work, but it wasn't the best one. It wasn't optimal. However, now with Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier, you're pretty much just playing this and the spell card. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can add one of your Ice Barrier cards, you search the spell card, and then with the help of the spell card, you are able to actually make a Toad. So essentially, when it's activated, you're able to target a level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monster, special summon it, and that's how you get 2 level 2 aqua monsters that you can make Toad with, which is amazing. But not only Toad, like overall Sprite is just a very decent deck because it has a lot of negates, which there's not a lot of them in the meta right now. You have a free monster negate, free spell and trap negate on top of other interruption. You have Sprint, which is kind of an underrated one. You can even play Mannequin Cat and do some stuff with that if you want. You can include Melfi cards in it. There's a lot that you can do, and you can also play hand traps. It's just a very solid deck, and now that it has like just solid access to Toad, I think that's kind of awesome. So let's talk about the actual prices. I think it's amazing to see Sprite Blue at about $3 or $4. Like that's just very solid. I think Sprite Blue was $15 for the longest time, and right now that's not the case anymore, so that's amazing. And the rest of the deck is cheap by itself. Of course, you gotta keep in mind that there's some extra deck stuff that you kind of have to play. But when it comes to the Sprite side of things, they did receive reprints, and overall the other ones weren't expensive to begin with. I think Gigantic Sprite was like $5 or something, which is not terrible. And yes, right now you can go for all of these Sprite combos, and you just gotta invest in some other non-engine and extra deck cards that you choose to play. So in my opinion, Sprite is a nice deck, and it has potential to do well in the next format. And since we're on the topic of Ice Barrier, let's focus on Ice Barrier Runic. So a lot of Ice Barrier cards are cheap, most of them actually. We already talked about the support, which is very solid, of course, for the actual Ice Barrier deck. And when you look at other Ice Barrier cards, they're also extremely cheap. And the most expensive one would be Revealer. It only has one printing from the structure deck Freezing Chains, which it is an ultra rare, about $9 right now. But if you have those structure decks, or if you tore them apart and used some other cards from them, I'm pretty sure you're able to dig out some revealers from your bulk. And when it comes to the Runic side of things, which I opened up before, now we can go back to this. Runic was quite an inexpensive engine for a while now with some of the reprints. Like Runic Tip right now is about $5 from the old set. So if you're looking at reprints, it's also actually around $5. So that's an irrelevant argument, but it's not expensive, and pretty much all you're investing in would be the revealers and the runic cards. And then you also gotta pay for Lancia, Ancestral Dragon of the Ice Mountain, which is a new card from Battles of Legend Terminal Revenge. It is very, very solid. Once per chain, if your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon one Ice Barrier monster from your hand, deck, extra deck, or graveyard, and then you're able to switch an attack position monster that your opponent controls to defense. You're able to do it once per chain, which is really cool. And if they get rid of it, you can also special summon an Ice Barrier Synchro monster from your extra deck. So it genuinely has solid effects, not to mention that it's a runic deck. So you're able to draw a ton, and you also make a lot of synchros. It's a runic synchro deck. So that's pretty much Coral Dragon, Ravenous, Crocosaur, draw 3 card and you're just able to gain quite a lot of advantage from that. I think it's a nice deck. I genuinely think it's solid, and I guess the only downside, of course, with any runic deck is the same, would be the lack of space for non-engine. But your runic cards, in theory, serve as non-engine in a sense, and you do have space for about 2 play sets of non-engine of your choosing. So I don't think that's bad. And yeah, I guess I just really wanted to talk about some of these new cards from new sets that I do believe in. And since we're on the topic of new sets and stuff like that, let's talk about Gimmick Puppet. So with Infinite Forbidden, we're getting an FTK. And I just want to quickly say, I am not condoning this. I'm not encouraging you to play the FTK. All I'm saying is, this deck is not expensive. So if you want to play a combo deck that's fairly rewarding, actually, because you're able to play through things and it's consistent, even though it's not consistently FTKing all the time, and it's just like there's complicated lines that feel really good when you're able to, I guess, make your way through them and play through some hand traps while you're at it and end on solid things. Like, it's a nice feeling. And if you enjoy playing like a creepy deck that you won't spend a lot of money for, I would say Gimmick Puppets are for you. So with Legendary Duelist Season 3, the Gimmick Puppet archetype actually received some really nice reprints. There's the Bisque doll, which got reprinted. You also have... let's talk about something that you actually play. So the Dreary doll is not expensive. The Xyz monsters, most of them actually got reprinted. And if you want to play any of them, which you probably should, there's quite a lot of them that you actually play in the extra deck, you're only going to be spending about $1 or $2 per the XYZ. And I guess with the Link, it's Gimmick Puppet Chimera doll, and it's about $3. So you are not spending a ton. There's like $1 here, $1 there, but it's still not going to amass to a huge amount of money. So for the most part, you're playing these Gimmick Puppet cards and the support cards from Infinite Forbidden. And if you look at the picture on the screen, you can see the rarities, and they are all for the most part either common or super. So you're not going to be spending a lot for this deck. And like I said, it is an FTK, but it's also a combo deck that ends on different interruptions. So if you enjoy this type of play style, and if you, again, don't want to spend a lot of money and maybe just auto win sometimes, you can play this. I'm not condoning FTKs, but I'm just saying. Before we talk about the last 2 decks on today's list, I want to announce my SP giveaway winner. I promised you guys is going to be in this video, and I think it's the perfect timing since we're talking about budget decks, and I really want to give back to you guys and help one of you out with giving away this SP Little Knight. I will be shipping it out as soon as possible. All you gotta do is contact one of my mods in the Discord server, which I'll have the link pinned in the pinned comments below. So the winner is 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! So thank you so much for this comment. It really made me happy. I love the real ones that know I'm into WWE. And yes, you earned yourself an SP with this comment. So congrats for that. Just make sure you don't forget to contact one of my mods so I'm able to ship this out to you ASAP. So with that, let's jump straight into the video again. And let's talk about the last 2 decks on my list. The 4th deck is going to be Pearly. I still believe in this deck. It's pretty much all there is, and it is really inexpensive. So here we have some of the Pearly cards with the 25th anniversary rarity collection too. They received some cool reprints. We were talking about how that's maybe not as needed, but it did drop the price down to literally cents. And if you want to play this type of deck, if you know anything about Pearly, it's a very rewarding deck to pilot. And why I think it's a particularly okay right now is because people are not going to be as prepared to deal with towers right now, since they have so much of their extra deck filled up by the Fiendsmith stuff. Before, you could afford to play Underworld Goddess and, you know, stuff like that. But right now it is a little tougher. You don't have as much space, and people are also going to be massively preparing for Fiendsmith and for other decks. So in my opinion, you're able to cheese out some wins with Pearly. And what this deck also has going for it, on top of the obvious towers, is you're able to play hand traps or board breakers, and you can really do whatever you want. So if you've been following along with Ding Hong Fam's journey with Pearly, he's pretty much done it all with this deck, and he's played so many different versions and non-engines, and literally switching out like a single card to make the deck even better. It is possible to do really, really well with this deck if you're well prepared. And as for the last deck on today's list, and I swear it's not because I'm biased that I put it on the 5th spot. It totally is. It's Flunder. Look, I had to cover it. It is budget decks, but it's a shifter deck. So just like with the FTK before, I'm not condoning this, but Flunder is not a bad deck. You can play shifter and just do Flunder stuff. At this point, I think you all know what Flunder does, but I can pull up the cards, of course, which I do have them prepared for you, in case you want to check out that they are also pretty much worthless, just like Pearly. Both these decks are extremely inexpensive, so if you don't feel like you want to spend a ton in this format and you just want to go to a couple events or even try your luck with these two decks at a really big event, I don't think that's a bad call. And Flunder is not the strongest deck out there, but if you play it well and if you cheese out a couple wins with Shifter, I think you should be fine. You still have enough space to do pretty much anything you want with your non-engine, so I think Flunder is not in a terrible spot. And that's pretty much going to round off today's list. Hopefully you enjoyed and you maybe pick one of these decks up, or let me know what you're going to be playing post Infinite Forbidden so you won't be spending a ton of money for that deck. And yeah, like the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!